So this week we had over 12 New York counties go to Washington, D.C., and they were from all over the state. We represented nearly 5-6 million residents of New York State and brought those concerns directly from the communities in New York to Washington, D.C. We met with both United States senators. We talked to Senator Schumer, the United States Senate Minority Leader. We talked to Senator Gillibrand about issues of voting concerns, electronic voting, the reforms in New York State. We talked about water pollution. We talked about marijuana and the negotiations that are happening in the State House in Albany here and how they have effect in Washington, D.C. in the banking industry. That this cash-only business of marijuana retail sales, if that's what happens in this year's state budget, is a dangerous thing in our communities. And so we're hoping that the banking industry can be changed so that it can be properly used for financing these types of transactions. There are many other issues that we brought, including bail reform, public safety initiatives, how these things interconnect between the decisions in Albany and those that are made in Washington, D.C. And there is a real connection. We also met with many members of the New York congressional delegation, all of which were very happy, pleased, and it was an important opportunity to interact with them directly. Let me give you an example of a very important issue that shares many common issues across the United States. There are a couple. Several of them are dealing with marijuana legalization, the county role in that, and the apparatus of public health, public education, mental health, substance abuse, and addiction services. But there are also other issues such as infrastructure and transportation money, local bridges, local roads off the state highway system, off the federal highway system, and why they matter in Washington and should be paid attention to. But there was one particular one that dealt with inmate medical care. This is not just an issue in New York State, but one across the United States, and it spans in all states of how we are treating incarcerated individuals. And is it right? Is it just? Is it fair to end their Medicaid enrollment while they're incarcerated, pre-sentencing or pre-trial even before a trial is given, an individual is taken out of the Medicaid program, and that causes a lot of disruptions in the mental health services, addiction services, just general public health connection, public health services. So that was very important to hear how common we are in California, Florida, New York, Virginia, Nebraska, the Northeast, the Midwest, the South. We're all in this together. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that respect. Another issue we heard from both United States senators and many members of the New York congressional delegation is how can we help with these gap areas in our state of rural cellular service? This is no longer just about a convenience or a luxury to have a cell phone. This is about someone dialing 911 in the middle of an emergency and expecting service to be provided to them in a time of critical need. Right now, we have gaps in coverage in the Adirondack and Catskill Park in particular, but also across this great state of New York. So the senators want to try to do something here in the Infrastructure Funding Act, the transportation package. There might be a way to add some funding. Both U.S. senators and the delegation from our state said that they would be contacting the FCC in letters and urging them to act in this regard. Well, in December of 2018, the United States Congress and the President passed a tax reform provision. Unfortunately, part of that tax reform provision eliminated a several hundred-year-old provision allowing New Yorkers to deduct their property taxes and their income taxes of the state from their federal taxes. That's called the state and local tax deduction, SALT. That was eliminated or capped, if you will, at $10,000. That hurts New York State. That hurts New York, unlike every other state in the country, but a few. So we brought that message from the community. We brought those particular concerns of how this hurts our state, what
what it does to our state's economy. Our governor has talked about the state budget, how fragile its condition is, and what SALT did to hurt the state's economy, in particular the lower part of New York State, the metropolitan New York City area, Long Island, and the Hudson Valley. Senator Schumer was very supportive, immediately saying this needs to be fixed. If it's incrementally fixed year by year, it should be. It should be repealed and replaced. So that message was delivered loud and clear. Our senators, our New York delegation, very supportive of our efforts.